Hello, BookTube. Good afternoon. It's Monday afternoon here in the UK, and I do apologize. I still got this cough, so I might be coughing a little bit throughout. Um, but today, this is my second last day of my holiday. I go back to work on Wednesday, and I decided to go to my local bookshop, used bookshop here in Bedford. It's called the Eagle Bookshop. It's fantastic. The prices are great. They have a massive bargain section, about 20 to 30 full bookcases, and they're mostly always chock-a-block full of great stuff. And so I went to basically pick up a few things that I had called in to be put aside, to be held for me, but I can never stop looking, and they do a very good. They treat me extremely well. Let's put it that way. And I've been going there for about 10 years now. I think it is. And so let's go through. It'll be broken into two videos here because there's too many books. I'll leave the Folio Society books for a second one. But let's just jump in, and I'll try not to ramble too much about the books. This one I had not seen before. It's A Tour in Scotland and a Voyage to the Hebrides by Thomas Pennant. And that's in 1772. It's paperback, but it's in really good shape. There's a very, very light, you can feel a light crease in the back where it was opened up in the middle. It was published by Berlin Limited in Edinburgh. And it was first published originally by John Monk in Chester in 1774 for the first part and 1776 for part two. And this edition is 1998. Doesn't look like there was any hardcover edition of this. I am not familiar with this at all, so it should be interesting. It's just I'm just sort of leafing through, and it looks quite interesting. It's quite hefty. It's almost 800 pages. It's not going to last to read very well because it's too tightly bound. It's going to crease. It's going to possibly break the spine. So it's a one shot deal, I would say. Here's another one that's quite interesting. It's Letters from the Cape by Lady Duff Gordon, and it's Cape Town. It looks like somebody bought it actually in Cape Town, 2009. A place called Select Books on Long Street. Interesting. So it's made its way over here. It's Letters from the Cape by Lady Duff Gordon, annotated by Dorothea Fairbridge, with an introduction by Mrs. Janet Ross. It's Oxford University Press, 1927. And there's the frontispiece and the title page. It's got a bit of wear. It's dark brown buckram binding with gilt lettering on the spine, and it's illustrated mostly with drawings. It's mid 19th century letters from the Cape, so that will go nicely with my my collection of Africa, and more specifically South Africa. Now, Cambridge and Cambridgeshire, I've got a long-standing interest in, because where I'm situated here, I'm almost equidistant between. I'm a little closer to Cambridge, but I'm sort of equidistant between Cambridge and Oxford, so that's really nice and handy. This one is Cambridge Discovered. I'd not seen it before, but it looks like it'll be a fun little read. Whether it'll stay in my Cambridge collection is another question, but I'll know once I read it. It's got some nice end papers with street map, and it was published. Let's get to the publication. It's Brian Little, illustrated by Margaret Hother. It's Cambridge W. Heffer and Sons. I wonder if that's Heffer Bookshop. I'm going to have to look into that, because there is a Heffer Bookshop. It's 1960. So they might have done that because it is Cambridge. Excuse me. Yeah, it's a little guide to Cambridge, so that should be fun read. Another one on Cambridge is one of the county books, Cambridgeshire, by E.A.R. Enion. And this one has a pretty well complete dust jacket. As you can see, there's a whole list of all the county books. I used to have a lot of these in Canada. I only have a few now, and obviously I picked this one up, Cambridge, because it was cheap. Robert Hale in Bedford Square in London, published 1951. They're just wonderful little overviews of a county. There's many of these series that have been done, but they have nice illustrations, nice photographs usually. They're fun to read, and it does capture a time as well, and they're very romanticized. But if you don't go into it and thinking that you're going to read, scholarly history, you're perfectly fine. Now, I normally don't buy any more books about archaeology because I still have a huge interest in it, but again, it's space that I have a problem with for storing books. But this one I couldn't pass up again because, as I say, they're £1, £2, maximum £5 in the discount section. And this is the Roman Villa in Britain. It's a series of studies in ancient history and archaeology series, but it's edited by A.L.F. Rivet, and it's a collection of essays on the Roman Villa in Britain. Jacket's a bit rough, a bit faded, but it looks good. It's Routledge and Keegan Paul, London, published in 1969. So obviously there's a lot more scholarship done and excavation since then, but for my use, it'll give me a little bit of background. It's got like a Celtic background, the plans of the Roman villas in Britain, the mosaic pavements, furniture and interior decoration, social and economic aspects, and the future of villa studies. So that could be that'll be a nice perusal just to read snippets or articles out of this. The reason why I got that is because it was a companion in a sense, to another one, an archaeology one. And the reason why I couldn't pass up this one that I'm going to show now is because of the author. And because I got that, I had to get the other one. It's sort of they go in a pair. This is by Brian Fagan. It's Elusive Treasure, the story of early archaeologists in the Americas. And I'm sure Mark Richardson will know that Brian Fagan is rather a legend in archaeology, and I do like his writing as well. So this will be a fun read at some point. It's a book club associate, so it's a book club edition, put out in 1977. In 1978, the book club edition, but in 1977 it was originally published. It says McDonald and Janes Publishers, must be a subsidiary of someone. But yeah, it's a nice edition, and I'm happy with that, even though it's a book club associate. Now, this author does not need any introduction. Everybody will know him. David Attenborough, Private Life of Plants, BBC Publications. I'm looking for his books now because I do want to start reading or rereading his stuff because there's many that I haven't read. So when I see them like this for £1 or £2, I'm gonna snap them up. Another one that I was never aware of is the Journals of Celia Fiennes. I believe it's Fiennes, Fiennes, and it's a nondescript little book. I'm familiar with the publisher, but not the author. It's edited and introduced by Christopher Morris, Fellow of King's College, Cambridge. It's got a foreword by the historian G.M. Trevelyan. Excuse me. And it's the Crescent Press, 1949, originally published in, this is the revised edition, 49, originally published by Crescent Press in 47. And it's late 17th century, traveling through England. And it reminds me of sort of an earlier voyage. Well, it goes up into the 1700s as well. Reminds me of Daniel Defoe's travels through Great Britain and Ireland, I believe it's called. That's much more substantial because this isn't that big. But this is by a woman that traveled, so that could give some extra insight and see different things. So that'll be a fun read. Another author I do like, and I am trying to find his books when I do. It's Evie Lucas. He was a prolific writer. Wrote essays, you name it. There's a bit of a list here, and that's only a partial list of what he wrote. He probably wrote over 100 books. I believe he was editor of Punch for quite a while. But this is A Wanderer Among Pictures, a companion to the galleries of Europe, by Evie Lucas, 72 illustrations, Methuen and Company, London, 1924. He did a whole series of A Wanderer in, I think the one I have is Wanderer in Venice. He did Wanderer in Paris, Wanderer in London. I forget now how many. There's a whole series of them, and they're all sort of, well, the original volumes are sort of like this, which is nice, gilt on the spine. The other ones, some of them have this nice ornamental decoration that continues down the spine, and they're just great. Like, obviously these are black and white pictures, but he goes through with this one just portraits. Not so much portraits, but just he wanders through pictures and gives his views of them, and he's just such a fabulous writer that I can read anything that he's written. This is sort of to hopefully to try to fill out a collection that I have of W.H. Auden's complete works. I have in my essay section, I think it's a 6-volume complete works of his essays, and this is his plays and other dramatic work or writings, 28 to 38, by Auden and Christopher Isherwood, and it's a bit faded, but I thought I'd add this to the collection. I have to find out how many more volumes there are to make the complete works. Looks like there's a poems, obviously it's poems, and then there's the libretti for opera. So I think there's maybe a few more volumes to get. This is by Princeton University Press, published, gives all the dates of the rest of the stuff. Looks like it says introduction in 1988, but I don't think it's that old. Could be. I didn't think it was that old, but anyway, it's it's just plays. It's exactly what you think it would be. Now, this one I was so pleased to find. I read this probably 20, 30 years ago, and I enjoyed it immensely. It's The English Country Parson by William Addison. It's J.M. Dent who did the Everyman Library. This is price clipped at the top, but I think it would have been, this is a second impression, it would have been price clipped because it had, a lot of times they had American or Canadian prices on them as well, and depending on where you were selling it, you would clip off the relevant pricings. So this one does have a British price on it, 7 and 6 pence, 7 shillings 6 pence, and it says Dent Books. It's a little sticker that goes over top. So, and then it's cut up there. You can see the edge of something. So it's probably a different price. Could have been a Canadian, most likely a Canadian price, being that it would have been easy to get books from Canada to the U.S. and not as much copyright issues as with the United States. But yeah, this is a reprint in 1948, originally in 1947, and this I'll enjoy rereading again. And it's just so beautiful. The dust jacket is really, really nice, so I'm very pleased with that. Let's see here. This one, not too sure about this one, but again, for the price of it, I'll take a look, and it might wind up in my London collection. It's a mid-Victorian masterpiece, the story of an institution unable to put its house in order. It's about Parliament in Westminster, by Barnett Cox. Published. It's a Book Club Associates again. Published in 1977. Again, know nothing about it, but I'll take a look at it and see if it fulfills my needs. This one looks interesting. English Country Life, 1780 to 1830, by E.W. Bovell. Again, something that I've not seen, but it looks quite interesting. Just goes through, exactly what it says, English Country Life. It's brief. It's a social. It talks about Cobbett's England, and then we're talking about the travels through England of that Celia Fiennes. Cobbett's, there's Cobbett's Rides, but those are 1700s, I believe. I've got several editions of those, of that. And it just talks about life by the looks of it, in 1962, by the Country Book Club. Originally published in 1962, this edition 1964, by the looks of it. Now, this will be a few series of books about books. Recollections of a Westminster Antiquary, Lawrence Tanner, and that's exactly what he was. He was keeper of the monuments and library of Westminster Abbey, 1926 to 1966. Lawrence E. Tanner. This is John Baker, Pall Mall, London, published in 1969. It just is various chapters. I'll definitely probably just read, first of all, the library chapter and see how that goes. But it might be something that will end up in my books about books here. Most likely will. This one is sort of similar too, but it's more about authors in landscape. It's Margaret Drabble, A Writer's Britain. It's an updated version of an older one that she did in 1979, I believe it is. This is 2009 by Thames and Hudson, and she just has chapters: Sacred Places, Pastoral Vision, Landscape as Art, the Romantics, the Industrial Scene, the Golden Age. And it's a nice little hardcover. It's got a ribbon, bookmark ribbon as well. And I've not read any of Margaret Drabble's fiction. I do know her for her companion to English literature, the Oxford Companion to English Literature. I was surprised to see that it was 1985. It was that long ago. Next one is a very, very small biography, I guess. You would call it William Caxton, A Portrait in a Background, Edmund Childs. I don't have anything, no bio of Caxton, so this will be the first. It is faded on the spine, but the jacket's substantially here. It's Northwood Publications Limited, by in 1976. There's a paperback edition as well. But yeah, so this should be kind of interesting. There's a lot of illustrations in it. Some typeface, for instance, or it's just trademark by the looks of it. But that should be interesting. I probably can't find it now. This is J.M. Dents Sons again. It's a little series of little essays. We call it the Temple Classics. Each volume has frontispiece and, where advisable, editorial appendices and marginalia. So yeah, this one is just a a little essay. It's a really nice paper on this. It's about Ben Jonson. Very thin paper in this. Timber or Discoveries being Observations on Men and Manners by Ben Jonson. Really, really nice little title page. And below the back there is Ben Jonson himself. And it's sort of like a little essay. It's or most of them are, but this is from Ben Jonson's Discoveries, and I just like these. I have another one. It's about paper, I believe it is, but I don't know if it's the same series as this. I initially thought it was, but it might not be. So there goes another series to try to track down someday. Now, here's one. I've known about this book for quite a while. I've never had a copy, so I've not read it. But Jason at Byways in Bookland, Jason Harrigan, will understand the title, I assume, and maybe this is where he got the title of his book channel from, BookTube channel. Byways Among English Books. It is a Methuen publication by Cyril Davenport, with 61 drawings by the author and 16 other illustrations. It's Methuen, as I say, 1927. And it's just collectors and collecting printing books, engraved books, bindings, leather, gold and silver, velvet, silk, satin, canvas, and cloth. And these are... that's 2 chapters, collectors and book collecting, and then the bindings. And then 3rd chapter, illustrated books, then miniature books, horn books, book stamps, and book plates. It's a little book. It looks quite nice. And it's just under 200 pages, 180 pages by the looks of it. As I say, this is, it's new to me to be read. But I am familiar with the book, and I sort of wondered, and I was just sort of surprised to see it there, so I thought I'd grab it. Another book about books. The printed book. An original manual by Harry G. Aldis, revised and brought up to date by the legendary John Carter and Brooke Critchley. It's Cambridge University Press. The original, it was bought at the Cambridge University Press, 10th of July 1951, and they paid 5 shillings and 8 pence by the looks of it for it, or 8, no. Oh, it was originally 8 and 6, and I think the discount got it for 5 and 8. And there's the receipt, the original receipt, so that's kind of cool. So this will be an interesting... read as well. Another addition to my John Carter collection. No, not the John Carter of Barsoom. Wish it would. Wish it were. This one looks quite nice. It's 2 volumes. It's English books, 1475 to 1900. A signpost for collectors. And they have their dust jackets. It's really rough cut pages, if you can see. And which is volume 1, Caxton to Johnson. And it's just it says it's signpost for collectors, but I could never collect the 15th century books or anything like that, or even 16th century probably. But it's got 100 illustrations. They describe the books, various ones, so that should be quite nice. And there's even, there you go, a large pullout of a manuscript. And, it just goes through 2 volumes, so that'll be a fun read through. In 1927, I should tell you about the publisher. It is 1927, published in the city of Westminster by Charles J. Sawyer Limited, and are to be obtained at their bookshop, Grafton House, Grafton Street, Old Bond Street, and in the United States from E.P. Dutton and Company. And the date on the spine, as I said, says 1927, and there's no date inside, so I'm assuming that's when it is, 1927. The next pile is a series of books that I probably will go through at some point. I've got a whole shelf full. I've got probably about 70 or 80 of them, I think, at the moment. Possibly. They were put out during the 40s, during Second World War, so the printing is not the best. It's William Collins, but their ad print was produced by Ad Print Company, and they're just little essays. And nicely illustrated. Here's Battlefields in Britain by C.V. Wedgfield. Very, very thin. And here's a listing of some of them, but I think there's well over 100 in total. And I tried to get them with the dust jackets, which is hard to get. That's what they look like without the dust jacket. They're still quite nice. A lot of them have the problems with the spines. As you can see there, it's flaking off. Or if you can, it's flaking quite a bit, and some are even worse than others. So it was nice to get these. There might be a few duplications, but if I thought it was a duplication and the jacket was quite nice, I thought I'd pick it up anyway as to upgrade. Here's English Villages by Edmund Blunden. A lot of these authors you may recognize. Again, it's just beautiful, beautiful illustrations. And they're basically just a short essay on whatever subject. I'll just go through these quickly because I'm getting up to 30 minutes here. English novelist Elizabeth Bowen. British Mountaineers by F.S. Smythe. British Weather, Stephen Bone. British cartoonist, caricaturist, comic artist by David Lowe. English Poets by Lord David Cecil. I do have this, but I think this jacket is much nicer than the one I have. British Postage Stamps by S.C. Johnson. And as you can see, the what's the best way to show that? Yeah, you can see it there a little better. The flaking and roughness to the spine. Let's see here. Life Among the English by Rose Macaulay. Again, another big writer. Another big title from this is George Orwell's English speaking people, or English People, I think it is. Which I do have a copy of, which is really nice. But anyway, I'll end it there. I'll be back with my folios from my visit today. So I'll be back shortly. Thank you, BookTube.